So now we're going to go over HTML and CSS. It's going to be basically a refresher, but also we want to look at some of the techniques that we use in mobile-specific development. So here's what you should know to go through this series. You need to know basic HTML, so HTML tags, attributes, how to format an HTML document, inline and external CSS structure. What helps, if you do know, is some of the CSS3 features or HTML5 features, and some of the HTML5 tags and elements. So what role does HTML play? HTML, for the most part, HTML5 is the foundation of the app. It's what the user sees. But HTML doesn't do much on its own. We do need JavaScript to create actions and CSS to style the data. HTML is a markup language, so that's pretty much all it does is displays data and content to the user. HTML gives us data, CSS makes it pretty, and JavaScript powers it. So those three languages are a powerful combination. And this is just some basic HTML tags that you probably should know. The document tags: HTML head, meta body, paragraph, lists, links, images. Form tags: we have the form input, select, text area, span and div, script, link, which usually go in the header, the head tag. We have these HTML5 tags: header, footer, A side, which is basically sidebar content, and section, which is basically say an article on the page. And then we have the video and audio tags, so we can embed video without Flash or any kind of plugin. We can also embed audio. So the viewport meta tag is something that's used in mobile web development, particularly responsive designs. By default, when a mobile device visits a web page, it'll zoom out so that you can see the entire website, which can be good, but it's also usually very small. Okay, so typically on most phones they'll zoom out to 960 pixels. But if we have a site that's optimized for mobile devices, we don't want it to zoom out because obviously it was made for a mobile device, so it's made for that small screen. So we want to tell the browser that it can zoom in to the width of the device, and we can do that with this tag here. It's a meta tag has a name attribute of viewport, and the content here we're just setting the width of the application or the site equal to the device width. So whatever the iPhone width, or if you have an Android phone, it'll be set to that width. So it's pretty important in mobile development. These are some of the attributes that this tag has: width, height, initial scale, minimum scale, maximum scale, and user scalable. So pretty much if the user is able to zoom in and zoom out with their finger. Alright, so the data attribute is something that's new to HTML5 and mobile development, and it gives us the ability to embed custom data attributes into any element. Okay, so data attributes consist of a name and a value. We don't have to rely on class or rel attributes to be data specific. Websites are becoming more app-like, and they're being data driven. And this is used a lot in jQuery mobile development, which we'll be looking at. So here's the data attribute syntax. Any data attribute must begin with data and then a dash or a hyphen. It should be used to deal with data within our app and not used to display anything. So here's an example of how we would use the data attribute. We have an audio HTML5 audio tag, which embeds the source which is track 1 MP3, and we have a type, which is audio / MPEG. Now we can add some helpful data to this with the data attribute. So you can see we can have our track, our type, and then we can have a data duration, tempo, an artist. So we can input any kind of data that we need to. And you'll notice that all of these start with data and then dash. So how is CSS different in mobile development? So obviously we're dealing with a smaller space and we have less room to work with. So our techniques in our way of styling is going to be a little different. Elements tend to be more centered than a normal web page. You don't typically have a website with all its text centered, but it actually works out well on a mobile device. We can use media queries for responsive layouts, which I'll show you in a second. So we can basically have certain CSS rules for a certain width of the screen. So if we open a browser and we drag it, we minimize it, not minimize, but make it smaller, the template or the website will actually become smaller with it, and it'll have different types of layouts according to the size of the screen. We also have use of libraries like jQuery Mobile, which has pretty nice user interfaces that you can set up with just a few lines of code. So, and it uses Ajax navigation. So we'll be looking into jQuery Mobile later on. Alright, so CSS media queries. Media queries are actually a CSS3 module, and it allows your content to render to adapt to conditions like screen resolution and screen size. You can see an example here. We have the max width property, and we're setting it to 600. We're setting the max width to 600 pixels. So this here we have dot class that has a background of light gray. This would only be applied to when the screen is 600 pixels or less, because this is our max width. So you can see, you can imagine how helpful this would be. We have the min width as well. So here we have min width 900 pixels. So this this class with the background of dark gray would be applied only if the screen is 900 pixels or more. Okay, so that's it. Next we'll be talking about JavaScript and jQuery in mobile development.